Hey, everybody. I just want to come in and, vent just a little bit from a couple of things that I've been seeing online, especially social media, about moms that are forced to have C-sections. I feel like they're only given half of the story. So, well before it's time for your due date that your doctor, your provider is talking about electing for a C-section, scheduling for a C-section. They have those conversations with you. If, like, right now, I think it's a scenario going on as far as a mom. This is her third or fourth child, and she's wanting to have a VBAC. But when did you successfully have the very first VBAC? This is going to be your third or fourth C-section, and providers really truly do not want to attempt VBACs, right? But here's what she failed to, disclose to everyone: that, okay, my provider always said no. So why are you going to make it seem as though the provider agreed? And we all know that providers, let's just say a mom had a C-section the first time. The second time is VBAC, right? Attempt for a VBAC. It's like pulling teeth for them to even say, okay, let's try at a VBAC. This is why it's so important for you to find a provider that agrees with your birthing method. You cannot ask a provider on the due date, could we go for a VBAC? No. I already told you that is a huge risk. Don't wait till the last minute to have these conversations. That's the very first conversations that, if you've already had C-sections in the past, that's the very first conversation that you have with your provider, period, point blank. If they're not talking the same talk as you need to mosey it along, go somewhere else. But don't go on social media painting the picture of they violated your birthing rights, and you knew the provider you were going to said absolutely no. You can find midwives, you can find providers that will agree with your VBAC, but it has to be something that you both agree on. That provider has to be, they have to be open. They have to be open to this experimental, exploratory birth, right? So I'm only making this video so that you all will know the truth about when moms attempt a VBAC, or they've been told, no, you're going to have a C-section. I've never seen it go to that extent of where they had to put the mom in court to, force her. She said that it was coercion. But I could see how she could feel that way because it's her body. But you also got to understand that you're going to a hospital. You are already stepping into a hospital to say, hey, I understand your policies and procedures. If you feel that you're going to get hurt at a hospital, don't go to the hospital. I cannot tell you what the alternatives is for you because I don't know your health, your baseline, what your situations are. And like I said, it's probably other things that she didn't disclose to us, that could have been critical for us to say, oh yeah, girl, you need to go ahead and have that C-section. C-section is not the best thing, but you also gotta, here's my thing. If you were a provider, right, and this particular person came to your practice, and yeah, you believe in the medical model, and you take every statistics serious, and you're not necessarily open to natural, birth practice or whatever, that you're going to say no, right? You're just automatically going to say no because you don't want that person's blood on your hands, right? But let's just say you were a provider that believes in giving the autonomy to their clients to make those decisions. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let's labor as normal. Let's get that thing going. Let's do the things that you're asking for, right? But if we get to a certain point where there are things that are happening and baby is in distress, not one time, not two times, three times, because sometimes those monitors aren't as efficient. And let's be real and honest, some of those monitors almost always lead to a C-section because they say, oh, the baby heart is, the heart rate is dipping. Techie, I'm not too familiar with how to pronounce the term. Techie something. That's when you see these ridges on the screen, baby going, the ridges like this, That's something stating that the baby is in distress, right? So I think it's best at the end of the day, advocate for yourself at the beginning. Evidently, she didn't get what she wanted. And it's another thing as well. Both of the moms that were told you're going to have the C-section, they were on also the bigger side. Okay. So I see this so often, and it's sickening. Because just because a person is on the bigger side, that doesn't mean they're not healthy. That does not mean that they necessarily have to have a C-section. You have to find a provider that will give you the authority to birth the baby the way you want. Yeah, it's going to require some work. But please don't go on social media and say, oh, my provider said this and that. And, you're not giving us the whole truth. Tell us the whole story of what transpired, if you can, if you're open to doing that. I know the lady's traumatized, but you can't go and start up a whole rant on social media and get people amped up, ready to fight, curse, and fuss, sign petitions, and not know full details. No, they're not going to allow for you. They're not going to agree for you to have a vaginal birth after 3 or 4 C-sections. Especially in Florida. The South? I'm from the South. And things are... we're slowly getting acclimated to, giving the moms the authority and giving her a little bit more space to make those decisions, but we still have a long ways to go. We're not far from Mississippi, where their infant and maternal mortality rate is exponentially high, so just be fair with those that are trying to ride with you and rock with you and support you in the community. Don't rile them up and not give all of the information. And I don't really know the full deal of the information. But what I do know is, and I've been in this business for like 9 years, doula business, good luck with getting a provider to agree to you having a vaginal birth after 2 to 3 VBACs. 2 or 3 C-sections. I'm sorry. The more and more you have those C-sections, the more and more adamant that provider is going to be. Maybe you can look up on a provider to say, after the 2nd C-section, let's try. Maybe that's a hard maybe. After the first C-section, yeah, I think they're a little bit more open to it now. But when you're talking about 2, 3, 4, I don't think so. I don't think so. So just give those details. We want to know those details. We want to know how to navigate. We want to know how to advocate for ourselves, you know? Also, there was another video of a scenario where the doula was there. I don't know if the doula was serving as the mom and the doula. I'm not sure. But they told her birthing team to leave. So me personally, if I was in that situation, and this is just my personal opinion on things, I would have said, gather my things. I'm going with them. I'm not staying here. If they leave, I leave. Okay? Now, if you've already had that epidural, you know you ain't going nowhere. Okay? And that's another thing too. The lady, the very first lady that I was situation I was talking about, she had already had the epidural. So you're already disabled with that epidural. Who do you know that's going to allow for you to, you can't even walk out. Who's going to wheel you out? Who's going to pick you up? They're not going to go for that. They're not going to go for that because they can get sued. But again, when you go into a medical facility, you have to think as a, I hate to say this, you have to think as an attorney. You have to think as an OB. What would you do if you were in the OB's position? What would you say? What would you do? And you have to play all these scenarios out in your head well before your due date, so you don't get cornered, locked up, tangled up, and can't come up out of there. You know? So do all your due diligence before you get into a state of where you're stagnant and you cannot move. You know, it makes entirely no sense and legally no sense for you to leave the hospital. And I just hate to say this to the new moms or moms, period. Don't rush to the hospital right when you have a contraction. Don't. Give your body some time to adjust. You'd be so surprised how your body can naturally adjust. But you got to be willing to be patient with yourself and your body. Don't run straight to the hospital. Even if you're healthy, you know, even if you may have to get, you know, they said that you have GBS and you got to get there 4 hours before giving birth to get the antibiotics, which I'll do another video on that because there's so many lies that we've been told about GBS and antibiotics and things of that nature. But do your due diligence. I don't know how many times my clients have actually, and I hate to say this, and it hurts my heart to say this, but a lot of my Medicaid moms typically fail to do the due diligence after I have preached to them red in the face. Ask these questions. These are super duper important questions, because when it's time for you to birth, that hour, if you and your provider aren't on the same team, and if you don't feel comfortable or you're not familiar with your provider, all hell is going to break loose. Let's just be real about it. Set yourself up for success. And it's okay. It's okay to push back. It's okay to say, hey, I don't want that provider. I prefer another provider. It's okay. Do your due diligence well before your due date. And if they switch up on you, don't go for it. Say, you know what? This is not going to work out, so you can go ahead and get me the paperwork so I can get up out of here, and that will be an AMA. So you'll have to sign a piece of paper to state that you are walking out and leaving against medical advice. So what? It's okay. I've seen so many times where moms are sitting there like, yep, I'm getting up out of here. They ain't gonna sit up here and do no C-section on me. I'm out of here. And they'll go hospital to hospital until they get the answer that they want. It's a lot. I know. But I also tell moms too, especially the ones that are seeking for a VBAC, you got to exercise your right. You got to advocate. You got to help that provider see the benefits. You would think the provider would know the benefits, but they don't. Discuss those things with them, because sometimes when you start having these types of conversations with your provider, you're opening up their mind to allowing their clients to birth in a whole totally different manner than what they've been taught. Things are changing, things are evolving. We got so much innovation going on right now. So have that conversation with the provider if you decide to have an OB. Don't forget, they are bound to rules, policy, and procedure, that white coat ethic too now. Okay, that's what pays their bills. You think they're gonna step out and do something special just for you, and then when you leave, they're unemployed? Very seldom. I feel like if it was a super duper situation where, it's just ethnically wrong and a provider step forward and say something, that's understandable, because they know that is truthfully right to do and step in to help advocate for that client, for that patient. But majority of the time, I'm so sorry, sis, they do not allow for you to have VBACs, have a vaginal birth after 3 or 4 C-sections. I'm sorry. Sounds so harsh, because just to hear her reason on why she didn't want the C-section, because it disables her body after the surgery, that's just, my heart went out to her, because I can really truly understand how disabling that is. That's serious. But you said you're gonna be the one. Now I'm about to take it a little bit deeper, and you may not like me for this one. Where was the dad? Why wasn't he there to support her? This isn't her first baby, her second baby. Where's the dads? Those types of things matter. And now it's like you're traumatized because you feel like you're alone, or you may have like a friend that's there. That's always good to have someone there to help advocate for you. But we got to start bringing these fathers back into the birthing community. Bring them into the labor and delivery room. Yeah, you hate his guts. It depends on the type of relationship that they have. We don't know. But she got to be okay, cool with him, and she on the 3rd, 4th kid. Right? So I'm puzzled. But just give us all the details before we get riled up and ready to fight. Because America now is changing, and they're for the moms. They're for the birthing parents or the birthing community to birth the way that they want. But give us the full details. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot ask your provider for vaginal birth after 3 or 4 C-sections. Unless you found that golden provider. I ain't saying that you can't find it, but I'm just saying, in a hospital, OBs, they're not going to go for it. They're not. So I'm so sorry, sister. You got traumatized. You got embarrassed. You got belittled. I hope that you're able to get some counseling to help combat that trauma, that postpartum struggle that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life. The rest of your life. So if this is a message to the masses, please, y'all, do your due diligence. Find that provider that rocks with your vibe, your request, the things that you want to see in your birth. It is a doable thing. It really truly is. But you got to do the work. Because if you don't do the work, then we're going to be seeing you on social media, showing how you weren't given the total authority to birth your baby the way you want. Okay, y'all, I'm done with ranting, but thank you so much for just listening to me. But I wanted to provide just a little bit more background on how you can achieve your ideal birth by finding the right provider that will allow for you to birth the way that you want. It is a doable thing, and you just got to do your work. Bye.